Hello, welcome back to my studio. Today I'm going to be ranking some live action horses. I recently did one where I did cartoon horses, so now I'm doing live action horses. So the only rules or criteria for this is the horse needs to either be like notable or prominent or a main character in the show or movie. So I know a lot of Westerns have background horses, or there'll be a lot of horses in medieval stuff, like Game of Thrones has a lot of horses, but there's no specific horse that's important. You could argue the direwolves might be more important. Anyway, so they have to be prominent in some way. There's a couple choices I made that were more personal that I enjoyed that you might not consider prominent, so I'm breaking the rules a little bit there, but just to like kind of cancel out Western horses and side horses and stuff that are just kind of like, obviously every cowboy has a horse, but not all of them are important. They have to be fictional, or they can be based on a real horse, but they need to have a movie adaptation of that. So I'm not gonna do something like Lena, who is a famous cutting horse? He's a cow horse. He's a famous horse in general, but he doesn't have a movie or anything about him, so stuff like Seabiscuit and Secretariat count, but not Lena or Man o' War or something like that. Also, no documentary horses, so like Harry and the Snowman, so I'm not gonna do Snowman because this is a documentary, there's no fictional aspect to it. And I will be skipping some side characters that are kind of technically prominent, like Ginger and Topthorn and things like that, because I just don't have all day. And I know in the last video I skipped some stuff like Applejack, and everyone's like, where's Applejack, where's Rainbow Dash? And it's like, again, it's like if I went through every horse, it would take all day. So I'm just doing kind of main horses, and again, you'll see some horses that I find personally interesting, but might not be super prominent. But anyway, those are the general rules, and I'm just gonna jump right in. So let's go ahead and rate some live action horsies. All right, so first up we have Black Beauty. Black Beauty is very near and dear to my heart. It was one of my first like big kid books I read. It was like a long chapter book with a lot of words, so I thought it was really impressive that I read it. And it was also my first exposure to like, ooh, this is like dark media, because there's a lot of like abuse and stuff mentioned in it. It's about a horse who is sold and or traded off into several different homes over time, so some of them are better, some of them are worse, most of them are worse. So it talks about this horse going from like being a working horse and a taxi horse and all these things, and some owners are okay and other ones are just downright abusive. But I really love that story growing up. It was very, I don't know, it's a very heartfelt story because Black Beauty is also separated from their friend at the time. It's just like, it's preteens exposure to being sad. So Black Beauty is obviously an S. They are awesome. Apparently there's like a new movie and it's more modernized in the modern age, and I hear it's really bad, and I'm just not going to soil Black Beauty's memory like that. So next we have Silver from The Lone Ranger. I'm not super familiar with The Lone Ranger, so I did a little research, and Silver is a character who is rescued by the Lone Ranger. There's a couple adaptations where he's rescued in different ways. One I think is from a buffalo attack, the other one's like he's captured or something, but either way, basically the Lone Ranger will rescue this horse that's wild. And then once he rescues it, he's like, you are free now. And then this horse is like, actually, I'm gonna stay and we're best friends now. And I don't know the Lone Ranger's friend's name, but basically he's like, his fur is like silver, so they call him Silver. So he's like an iconic horse, the rearing up and the hi-ho silver thing comes from this horse. I think he's really beautiful. I think he has really cool like bridle, like silver bridle embellishments and stuff. I think it's very heroic, but I think in general, beyond his intro story, he's kind of just like, I ride the Lone Ranger around. I don't think there's anything other than that for the horse. So since I didn't grow up with him and he doesn't have anything beyond that, I'm gonna go ahead and put him in B. He's middle of the road. He's a cool guy, but I don't have any personal attachment. Next up we have Hidalgo. Hidalgo is a story about a like famous endurance horseman rider dude who's down on his luck, and he decides to help out this herd of Mustangs that's going to be rounded up and slaughtered by going to the Middle East and riding in this dangerous desert ride that would result in a lot of prize money so he can save the herd of Mustangs. And he has this little paint pony that no one believes in because paint horses historically, or just American horses historically, have been looked down upon as basically just not bred well. It is hard to like these horses that have been mixed together to judge their conformation, all those things. And it was an era when like thoroughbreds and Arabians were seen as like the top racing horses. So he takes this little paint pony to the Middle East and they go through a ton of adventure stuff. There's this whole like princess fight scene, weird love triangle thing going on in the middle that I think could just be completely taken out of the movie and it would be made better. But other than that, it's a good little horse adventure movie. It has Vigo in it and we love Vigo. I'm gonna give Hidalgo S because it's like a classic tale of like an underdog triumphing. He wins the race, he saves the Mustangs, and at the end he releases Hidalgo. There's a scene where like I remember vividly where he cauterizes a wound on Hidalgo and then immediately, like not even that long after cauterizing this wound, they go and start running again. That can't be realistic. Also, I feel like, I don't know, cauterizing's weird because I feel like half the time it gets infected, so I don't know. Next is Little Blackie. This is one that you might not know. It's from a movie called True Grit. It's really not even that big of a horse. It's one of those like personal preference things, but Little Blackie is just a horse who is the main girl character's horse. She's on this like quest to find the man who killed her father with a gunman, and a Texas Ranger comes with them. But there's a scene where she's trading horses because she needs money to hire the gunman, so she's trading off her family's horses, and she still needs a horse for herself, so she gets this cheap but spirited horse that she names Little Blackie. And there's a scene where they go to a river and they're crossing the river, and the gunman, once she crosses the river, is like, "That is a fine horse. I will give you 10 cents for him," or something, some dollar amount, but basically it's like, he's impressed by the horse, but he doesn't want to pay a lot for it. Anyway, I really liked it. I think it fits really well with the themes of the movie, where it's like all of these characters who have to prove themselves are like their true grit. They need to show their grit. So you have this like pony that no one wants, that everyone thinks isn't worth anything, and turns out it's very tough and it can go the extra mile or whatever. So I think even down to the horses, the characters in the movie all have to prove themselves, and I think that's cool. So I'm gonna give Little Blackie an A. He's not quite an S because he's not really a hero or anything, but I do think thematically writing the horse to be like that is pretty clever. So now we're moving on to one that we should all know if you're into horses, and that is Artax. He was our first introduction to depression. He traumatized us. He is Atreyu's horse in the Neverending story, and the scene where he dies in the Swamp of Sadness has haunted us all forever, or it has haunted me. But he's a really cute horse. I watched this documentary where it showed like how they train the horses to be okay with like being submerged in mud. So you actually have a horse being like on a platform in the mud and they're like sinking down. So up until like a certain point, they're actually sinking the horse. So I thought that was pretty cool. Of course, after Fantasia is remade, after it is saved, Artax is reborn, so he does come back, but that scene when he's just sinking, and in the book he can talk, he's like, "Just let me die, go on without me." So anyway, Artax, easy S for childhood nostalgia reasons, and just he's iconic in giving us all our first taste of just stress, raw stress. Now we move on to Pilgrim from The Horse Whisperer. I have a bone to pick with The Horse Whisperer because I think if it was remade, it would be a really good movie, but as it stands when I watch it, I just don't enjoy it. And I want to like it so much because it's a classic. And my favorite horse trainer of all time was what is it called? He was the consultant? He was the consultant on it. He was the one who came and like taught them how to work with the horses and kind of gave them feedback on the horses, and even his own horse was a part of the movie. Whenever the horse is like pawing at her, that's his horse because the Hollywood horse couldn't do it. Anyway, I want so desperately to like this movie, but I just don't. I think the it could just be written better. It's like this girl is in a horse riding accident where her friend and her friend's horse are killed because they are hit by a semi, essentially. And her horse survive, she loses her leg, and then the horse is just traumatized, so they take the girl and the horse to Montana to this famous horse whisperer trainer to fix them because the mom's convinced the horse is the key to the girl's healing or whatever. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Romance affair ensues, and she's like, actually, just kidding. I belong to the city just like the other girl who broke your heart, and so I'm gonna double break your heart. So cowboy dude loses, everyone else wins. Pilgrim and the girl heal by some mystical woo-woo magic. I don't know, I just feel like if it was remade, it would be way better, but I'm gonna give Pilgrim a C because he never stood a chance. That movie sucks. Next is a trio. So I included multiple horses from this series because I subscribe to the idea that Lord of the Rings is actually a horse girl series. There's a lot of prominent horses in it. If you read the book, they go more into the emotions and things like that with the horses. The movie, obviously, we're not gonna like delve into that, but they still appear in the movies, so I'm going to talk about those horses. So we have Shadowfax. Shadowfax is the lord of the horses. He's technically a different species of horse, so he is faster and stronger and more intelligent than regular horses. He can understand English, apparently, or just human speak. I don't know if it's just English. And the only one who's ever tamed him is Gandalf the White. He is Gandalf the White's main steed, and he goes with him to Elfland at the end. He's really cool. He's really beautiful, beautiful gray. I respect him. He's an S. He's just the lord of the horses. Come on, can't give him less than S. He never done nothing wrong. Next in the Lord of the Rings trio is Bill the Pony. Bill the Pony is more described in the books than in the movie, but in the movies he does appear. He is Sam's horse. He is with them for a long time in the journey until it becomes too dangerous, and then he has to go off on his own. But then once the journey is over, they meet back up with Bill the Pony and they go back to the Shire. And in the book they describe how he is loyal to Sam and they're basically best friends because Sam bought him from a man who was neglecting him. Bill the Pony is a G. He traveled all over Middle-earth with Sam. He's basically, Bill the Pony is to Sam what Sam was to Frodo, so it's like this weird ladder of loyalty. Anyway, Bill the Pony is awesome. He gets to go with S with Shadowfax. Our last Lord of the Rings pony / horse is going to be Brego. Or Brego, I don't know. So this is Aragorn's horse. Aragorn technically has 2 horses, but Brego is the main one in the films. There's technically a second horse, but they mostly focus on Brego. Brego is the one who rescues him at the river whenever he's wounded, and Brego's the one who he's on most of the time when he's traveling. In the books, they describe that Aragorn says that Brego should never see war or fighting again, so in the war scenes, I don't think he's on Brego, but when he's traveling, he's with Brego. So Brego is obviously an S for saving Vigo and Aragorn. All right, next is a controversial one. I did not grow up with these books. I did not know who this bitch was. This is Misty from Misty blah blah blah, but the movie's just called Misty. I watched the movie. I don't know why it's called Misty. The movie should be called Phantom because the entire movie is these 2 kids. There's this island. Every year they round up Mustangs on this island and they sell them. These kids have their hearts set on this one named Phantom, but surprise, she's pregnant. And anyway, they end up getting Phantom and the baby whose name is Misty. And the whole movie is them like training Misty and riding Misty, and they're training her to race because there's a race every year to like race these Mustangs and prove who's the coolest. And Phantom's like pretty good at it, but then randomly at the end when they're almost at the racing part, the kid's like, be free, Phantom, get out of here. It's like that stereotype of like, get out of here, you stupid, dumb animal, because I love you, but you need to be free. So then Phantom runs away, but then Misty is like, I don't know anything about that life. I'm gonna stay with the people. That's literally it. Misty was just not even a main character. They like pet her all through the movie, and then at the end she makes one decision and then the whole movie's called Misty. If I read the books, maybe I'd have better context, or maybe they thought maybe there'd be a sequel, but the movie makes no sense to be called Misty, and then there's an adult picture of Misty on the cover, but then she's never even an adult in the movie. So Misty gets an F for having no part in the movie titled about her. It's controversial because I know so many people love Misty, they love those books, but I have no context for how the books go. I'm just going based on the movie. This is a live action horse video. So she gets an F simply, or it's a D, I guess, but it's about Phantom, let's be honest. Phantom would have maybe gotten a C. I was kind of annoyed with how obsessed she was with like going back to the wild. Horses are meant to be trapped in a stall in my house. So we are now on to the infamous Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit is a real horse, but they have an adaptation, which I would recommend to anyone. I feel like this movie, even if you aren't in love with horses, this is an enjoyable movie to watch. The acting's good, the cinematography's good, the story's good. From a horse person perspective, the horsemanship is pretty accurate and the shots are amazing. Obviously, there's some movie embellishments. The story is pretty accurate with some twist. I mean, that's any adaptation, but I would say like in general, the vibe of like during the Depression era, he's this underdog horse who he's too small, he's too fat, he's too slow, but then with the right trainer who's also an underdog, he becomes this like champion horse. He doesn't like win tons of giant titles, but he wins the ones that matter. Like he's beating all of these horses that should be better than him, but he's doing it. It's a really good movie. He's a really cool horse. R.I.P. Seabiscuit, he's a legend. Seabiscuit is an S. Next we have one that I wasn't familiar with. This is Thowra. He is like a kid's story, kind of like Brumby. Every country or whatever has their own word for a wild horse, if they have wild horses. So in America it's Mustang, in Australia it's Brumby. I'm sure Africa has a different name. They have a lot of wild horses. I don't know if Canada has a different name, but anyway, there's Brumby and Mustang, that's the ones I know. So he's a wild horse. The story is basically the mom is telling her about this fake horse, but turns out he's real, of this Brumby who's born, who wants to become the king of the Brumbies, and he becomes the king of the Brumbies, but there's this like man who's hunting him down who wants to catch him. And that's pretty much it. That's all that happens is this guy tries to catch him and never can because he outwits him. He's too smart, he's too beautiful. I will say in the movie, it's pretty nice cinematography. I feel like the story of Thowra is pretty like engaging, and this guy trying to chase him, even though like literally almost nothing happens. But I'm gonna go ahead and give him an A, just because it was engaging for something that had nothing going on other than he becomes the king of the Brumbies and hides his wife, hides his kids. So now we're on to the next famous racehorse, Secretariat. Secretariat is a real horse, another adaptation. Disney did this one, I think, and it was not as good. I wouldn't say not watch it, but I really wouldn't like go around bragging about it. It's fine. It's definitely not as good. I feel like Seabiscuit appeals to the everyday man, and Secretariat's like, I don't know, it's like some rich woman bought this foal who they're like, he sucks, but if we give him the right trainer, and they give him like an experienced trainer, and all of a sudden he's winning everything. And they're like, well, I inherited this estate and all this land, and the only way to afford the property tax is if I get shares or whatever. So it's just like stupid rich people shit, and it's just not very engaging. He's not an underdog. It's like we know Secretariat's gonna win if you just give him the chance, and he does. In real life, Secretariat's a really cool horse. He has done incredible feats. He won the Triple Crown, which is extremely rare to do in general. He's set track records that I don't know if they've even been beaten today. I think if they have been, it's only been recently, if at all. So Secretariat's really cool, but as far as the movie goes, and the Secretariat in the movie, I'm gonna go ahead and give him a B, just because the movie sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck, I just don't like it. I mean, if you're comparing it to Seabiscuit to Secretariat, Seabiscuit wins, but. Next is another personal favorite, I guess. This is Ribbon from the movie 3:10 to Yuma. 3:10 to Yuma is one of my favorite Westerns, and Ribbon is a minor character, but I feel like the dynamic between Ribbon and the main villain, Wade, is really cool and adds like a nice dynamic. I feel like the way people treat animals says more about who they actually are than how they behave. So Wade is like, what would you call it, like an outlaw? He's an outlaw who has killed and murdered and stolen things, but he treats his horse like he loves his horse, and like his horse has incredible recall, which shows like an extremely strong bond and like tons of training. So you know deep down he's actually like he's genuinely a kind person, even if he does bad things, and he never becomes like a good man, but he is a kind, fair person in a way. At the end of the movie, they show an example of, you know, their bond or whatever. He like whistles and it runs across a train and he's able to escape, and it's implied he escapes. So Ribbon gets a B because I think it's cool how they're implemented, but I don't think it's like that outstanding. I just thought it was something I noticed and I really liked. It's something that, like, when I think of 310 To Yuma, I think of that relationship of the horse and Wade. Now we have one that, depending on who your grandparents are, how old you are, you know this one. This is Mr. Ed. This is a sitcom about a man and his talking horse. They would read the paper, they get into shenanigans. The voice of Mr. Ed is pretty good. It's not annoying at all. It's like it feels like it fits a horse, but it's not obnoxious. There's not like whatever. I think something that's interesting about Mr. Ed is that during a time when it was very commonplace to use physical force to train animals, it was known that he was trained in a very gentle and like kind of positive manner. There wasn't any hitting or anything like that. So Mr. Ed was known to be treated very well. He was very beloved by the people on the show. He had a stunt double, but he was rarely used because he was so cooperative and enjoyed the experience. So Mr. Ed's a cool guy. I don't think he's like a heroic legend, and I didn't grow up with him, so I don't have that personal affinity. So I'm gonna give him an A. I think he's a great character. I think the backstory's cool, but I don't have any, he's not elevated beyond that. Now moving on to The Black from The Black Stallion. This is a movie about a boy who is shipwrecked with a strange Arabian horse, and they become friends, and then he tames him, and then when they're rescued, he races him, and he's so fast. It's fine. I feel like it's something I would have to grow up watching. I didn't think it was that special. He's kind of an annoying horse where it's like, I can only be tamed by this boy, but I'm running away, now I'm not, now I'm running away, now I'm not. It's just the back and forth of like, I'm wild, but I'm not, but I'm wild. I'm just gonna give him a C. I didn't care for it, it was fine. Moving on. Flicka. Flicka is a popular horse, another Arabian, even though I think they labeled her as a Mustang, who's tamed by this girl who wants to run the ranch but has to go to school, but her brother wants to go to school but has to run the ranch, so they have opposite desires, but because they're a boy and a girl, they just can't figure it out, and the dad is the problem, and through Flicka and the girl almost getting herself killed to save Flicka, the dad comes to realize his mistakes and everything's all cool. It's very horse girl. Flicka's whatever. I'm gonna just put it with The Black. I feel like it's kind of the same vibe. I just don't care about it. Next we have Joey. It was a book I read growing up. I really liked War Horse. It was kind of the edgy, whatever, horse book kind of deal I was into when I was a kid. So whenever the movie came out, I think it was Steven Spielberg, it was a really good adaptation. It was really close to the book, and it had the same beats, and like everything in the story that happens in the book happens in the movie. I feel like cinematically it was really beautiful. The shots were really beautiful. I feel like the emotions came through. I think the only difference was the book is definitely more gruesome. There's like a scene where he's tangled up in the barbed wire in the no man's land, and they describe in detail like the infection and like how deep it was cutting and stuff like that. So in the movie, obviously you're not gonna like get that effect. But Joey's a cool guy. It comes from like the narration of Joey in the book, but in the movie it's kind of more of like the perspective, like it just follows Joey because they didn't have him talk, which I thought was a good idea because it made it more, you took it more seriously, but I think you still got the same ideas across, which is impressive. I think Joey's cool. I think his story's heartwarming. It's like a boy raised him, his dad bought him instead of a working horse, and the boy's like, no, we can make it work. So they just had a really good bond, and then he gets sold to go to war, so then the boy goes to war because he's like, I need to find my horse. And then by the end of it, they both are wounded and battered by the war, but they find each other and they can both live in peace. It's really good. Anyway, I'll quit yapping about it. Joey S for sure, a war hero, a veteran. We respect our veterans. Next is a popular Western horse named Trigger. His original name was Golden Cloud. There were 3 different Triggers, but the main one was the original, who was renamed Trigger because of his wit and speed. He's just a really famous Western horse. There's nothing too much about him other than that. He was on the Roy Rogers show. He was just a really talented Palomino. He was iconic to the Western kind of vibe. He was in tons of episodes before he was replaced by other ones to continue on. I didn't grow up with him. I just know he's a Western icon, so he's gonna be a B. because I just don't know what else there is about him other than he rode Roy around. It wasn't like he did party tricks or anything, so. Now we have a more modern horse. This is Lucky from the movie Nope. I love the movie Nope. It's a horror film that incorporates horses by Jordan Peele, so it's everything I've ever wanted in a movie. Lucky is a horse that is sold to the Jupiter Ranch to be a part of the Star Lasso experience where an alien comes, sucks him up and eats him. But Lucky, being Lucky, does not get eaten. Lucky is lucky, and at many points in the movie, there's a scene where the monster's attacking or whatever, so they have to run inside, and Lucky, I think, is in the trailer for like an entire night or day or something. That's pretty intense. But I'm gonna give Lucky an A because it's a really cool movie. I think the utilization of the horse is really cool. There's a couple of scenes where it's like, obviously this horse is desensitized to death and we're just like seeing it not react to anything, but it's just Hollywood, whatever. There's also this idea in the movie that horses, if they look something in the eye, freak out. There's like I don't think any horse that you look in the eye is gonna freak out. Maybe a Mustang. I think Mustangs are a little weirder about that, but Lucky was a very well-trained Hollywood horse. There's no way eye contact is gonna freak it out. I think it had more to do with the plot and the idea of like predator. Like there was like a whole bunch of eye contact imagery in the movie, so I'm gonna like let them have it. It's also a movie about aliens, so let's pretend in this world horses do have a thing about eye contact. Anyway, so now we're on to Gunpowder from the Sleepy Hollow. Not much to say about this one. It's just the horse that Ichabod Crane loans for his time period in town. It's a nag horse, which is usually something that's like old, slow, decrepit, not desirable. I thought he was cute. I think he's fine. He was a live action horse. He's gonna go in the B category for being, no, maybe C, because he just wasn't very remarkable. I feel like comparing him to Trigger and the likes is unfair. Not much to say. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. We're on to one that I was not familiar with, but I'm sure many of you are, is Argo from Xena, Warrior Princess. Argo and Xena are BFFs forever. It's a beautiful Palomino horse. It's her main steed. They are basically one with each other. I thought it was a cool horse. I saw a couple clips and scenes with them together. Apparently, Argo's pretty prominent in the show. I'm gonna give Argo an A. No. Yeah, for being a feminist horse, it will be an A. We're now into Lightning from 1883. This is again another personal thing. I just liked the horses in 1883. It's a show by Tyler Sheridan about just people going, the last trip on the Oregon Trail basically, but a lot of people didn't like the show because they thought Elsa was annoying. I don't really care. It just showed beautiful Western scenes with an okay story, and that's all I needed. But Lightning is just faster than the other horses, and he's beautiful, and for that he is B. No, yes, whatever, it's my list. I'm gonna put him in B because he's beautiful. Last but not least is Little Sebastian. Little Sebastian is a horse from Parks and Recreation. It's an unofficial mascot of the town in Parks and Recreation. It's a little, I think you call it a flaxen chestnut. Anyway, it's a flaxen chestnut-ish miniature pony. The running joke in the show is everyone in town is super obsessed with this horse. Even like the most hardened masculine men like Ron Swanson love Little Sebastian, but they never explain why they love Little Sebastian, so anyone outside the town thinks it's weird, but he's this really geriatric old pony, and spoiler alert, but he dies later in the seasons, and they have this huge festival to commemorate this horse because of how much they loved him. I know it's probably overrated to say this, but I'm gonna give Little Sebastian an S. I think that's the joke, is that it's overrated, that no one, like, there's no reason for this pony to be so popular. Oh, hello, what do you want? Give me 1 second. Go away. So anyway, Little Sebastian is an S. So this is my live action horses ranking. Lots of S's. I feel like it's hard with live action because when you're a live action horse, you're just a horse, and horses are just animals in general, and most animals are just inherently good. They're not carnivores either, so it's hard to frame them as a villain in any way. Most horses are associated with heroism and things like that, so there's gonna be a lot of S's. The only one in the F has more to do with the fact that I'm not even sure why the movie's called Misty. So yeah, I had to use a lot of the story aspects to kind of keep it a little more metered, a lot of personal opinions. But anyway, let me know if there was a live action horse that you grew up with that you loved, if you agree or disagree with my rankings, and if you guys like this, I might do a video game horses one, but we'll see. So anyway, that is the ranking of the live action horses, and I will see you next time. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.